On this week's episode, we'll be talking with Pip Kelly, a filmmaker with a very busy life, producing, directing, writing, and telling some very human stories.
Also on today's show, we'll be reviewing a German film, Juli.
Your German's terrible.
I know, it's in July for our English-speaking viewers, anyway.
Anyway, welcome to Showreel. Welcome once again to Showreel. I'm Nate Gothard.
And I'm Daniel Coyne-Watego. We're joined today by a documentary filmmaker, Pip Kelly. Now, Pip is a director, writer, producer, and currently working on an interesting new project. Welcome to the show, Pip.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Pip, let's not waste any time. Let's get down to business.
Okay.
First and foremost, what really got you involved in filmmaking?
Well, I originally studied anthropology, and the first couple of jobs that I had out of uni were really inspiring opportunities for me, and that's what led me into wanting to study film. So the first job I had, I worked with an archaeologist up in the Kimberley region of WA, and my role was to interview some of the elders in community. Yeah. And it was just such a wonderful opportunity to meet some really beautiful characters and learn about their stories and their lives. So that job finished, and I ended up in Broome needing some work. And it was probably about 15 years ago now. And I started working as a cook on a pearl lugger. So it was just me and 15 other pearl divers, and we'd go out for these 10-day long trips. And it was in the middle of the ocean, fishing for pearl, and just another part of my life where I met these really wonderful characters who had a really great story to tell. So that got me really thinking, I should start either making films about these people or working with them to help them tell their own stories. So I went back to Perth, and I needed to get some money together to buy some film equipment. And I got another job as a cook on a gas compressor station in the Gascoyne region, which is really a remote part of WA. And so that was me and maybe 30 other blokes all going the hard yakka, and I think it was like 3 weeks on, 1 week off. So I learnt about that whole mining industry and what a lot of Australians are doing in order to feed their families and just living remote in general. And it was while I was out there that I made my first film, which got me into film school.
Wow. Great, it's a very diverse range of jobs. So what film school did you attend, and how long were you there for?
Well, I did the postgraduate course at the VCA, so it was just 1 year, and it was specifically focused on documentary film. And I think at the end of it, you make 3 of your own films. But the good thing about that course is that you get to work on a whole number of other films in the same year as well, and you crew on everyone else's and learn all of the different roles that you could play in a documentary. So whether it's sound recording or camera skills or directing, producing, editing. Yeah.
Fair enough. Nice. So through that entire process, did you have a mentor, or was this a journey that you just decided to go through on your own?
I didn't have a mentor to start off. When I finished film school, I definitely looked around for one, and there's some really great doco makers in Australia, and people like Dennis O'Rourke, and there's a couple of really great female filmmakers as well that I look up to and contacted at the time. I didn't actually officially have a mentor, but through that process, especially those early years, I realised that actually your peers are your mentors, and it's really about working together with other people. And some of those mentors or some of those peers have now gone on to make some really great films. And yeah, I think just working with people, you learn so much, and that's what filmmaking is, isn't it? It's so much about working with the crew that you're working with, as well as the protagonist in your story. So I've learnt a lot from that.
Cool. Now I understand you've recently spent some time overseas. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I've just been in Cambodia for the past 2 months, December, January last year. and that was part of an AsiaLink residency. So it's run through Melbourne Uni, but you don't have to have gone to Melbourne Uni to apply. And this was an arts management residency, so a little bit different to filmmaking. The goal wasn't to make a documentary, but I definitely brought some of those skills into the project. The project was called Jong Jam, which means to remember in Khmer. And I worked together with 4 other Cambodian artists, 2 photographers, a filmmaker and a sculptor. And we put all our ideas on the table and shared our different skills, and we put on an exhibition which basically showcased historical family photographs from before the Khmer Rouge era.
Wow.
And then through an interview process, they each interviewed their parents about these old photos and what life was like before the Khmer Rouge. They then conceptualised their own ideas and created some new artwork. So yeah, it was a really awesome experience. And obviously, you know, an opportunity to work in a different language. I was lucky all of the other people who were involved spoke really good English, so I didn't need a translator or anything like that.
Yeah, nice.
Did certainly well there.
Yeah.
Just quickly before we go to an ad break, you certainly seem to really enjoy the documentary process. Do you like it because of creative control, or is it something that, you know, you just like collaboration more than anything?
Yeah, definitely. I do like collaboration. I also really enjoy working by myself. You know, writing or editing seems to be a bit of a soul mission. But then there are those other opportunities where you're working with other people. The project that I'm working on at the moment, I have a co-producer, so we work really closely together and feed both of our creative ideas into it. And when I work with a DOP, if I have the opportunity to work with a camera person, because sometimes I shoot myself, I really like to work closely with them, and we flesh out different ideas about how we're going to shoot something. And then I think that trust is built as well, so they know you sort of get on the same vision, and then it doesn't have to be like a tussle. It's more just working together.
Okay, we're going to take a small break and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Showreel. We're chatting with Pip Kelly, a documentary filmmaker. Now Pip, some of your most recent projects have been for the Queensland Museum Collectors Exhibit. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Well, I made a series of short magazine-style films about Queensland collectors, and that was to go into the Collectomania exhibition, which is all about community collecting and the things that people keep. So I think we're going to roll one now. It's about Tiger Lil, who is a local performer from West End, and she collects a whole lot of interesting things, including vintage records.
Nice. Let's have a look at that.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello. How are you? Come in. Come in. This room has, well, a few of my collections, has all my statues, which comprise a lot of religious iconography. I'm not religious, but I still think they're really beautiful. 12 years of convent schooling has got to impact some way.
There's been a few times people have come around and I've seen in their face as they kind of, you know, make assumptions, and it's kind of, you know, interesting to let that go.
My record collection, which I actually have never counted, but it's quite a significant collection of really good music.
A lot of music never actually gets translated to MP3s or digital format, and some amazing gems of music out there that are undiscovered.
The first silk dressing gown I bought, I was actually probably about 10 years old, and it was at a flea market with my mum, and I was desperate to buy this silk dressing gown, and she didn't understand. She eventually relented and let me spend $10 of her money to buy myself a dressing gown.
Just that last thing was quite interesting about how her relationship with religious ideology is more of an artistic nature than anything else.
Yeah, I think, it's a pretty unusual thing to collect. But the good thing about those films is that they're really easy to make and very simple, just one interview and then a whole lot of kind of recreation or cutaways to then add to it. So They were really fun to do and very easy. It's something that any filmmaker could make if they're just starting out.
It's a very personal insight as well. I like that, really getting into her mind state and in her living space as well.
It's very personal.
It was fun visiting a lot of people's different homes and finding out what they collect.
Now, speaking of personal, let's get on something that's very recent, it's very present, I'm guessing. Your current project, Thomas Banks, what's it called? Thomas Banks, The Power of Love.
Yep.
Tell us a bit about that. Like, where did you get the idea for it?
Well, I first met Thomas Banks about 4 years ago in Melbourne. He's a young playwright, and he's been writing a play about his quest to fall in love with another guy. So the film, the play that he presented really captured my heart and all of the audience that was watching it as well. So we started filming together, and it's been 3 years since we started that journey. The project's now in post, wow. And so I'm hurriedly trying to edit it together so that we can put it out to festivals and perhaps even broadcast. And it's a story about disability and sexuality, which is, I guess, a story that hasn't really been told that much.
Well, leading on from that, what are some, I'm sure that's one of them, but what are some of the other most rewarding aspects of your job?
Definitely being able to hear other people's stories is definitely one of the most rewarding things I get out of working in this job, and also to work with some really interesting people behind the scenes or in front of the camera. Just recently I've been doing some filmmaking workshops, and that's been in a co-facilitator role, so not as the actual, not as the sole facilitator, but with other people, and that's also been a really valuable experience for me too.
Wow. So going from that facilitator role, probably just the last question I think, it's more importantly, is what kind of advice can you actually give for, well, not only just, I guess, documentary makers more than anything, from your experiences?
Well, I still feel like I'm starting out in a way, and maybe that's because filmmaking is one of those things that there's so much to learn, and you're always learning something every time you make something new. So I guess my advice would be to make as much as you can and just to do it. Don't wait for the funding to come. If you've got a camera and you've got a good idea, go out and shoot it and get it started. Mm-hmm. And my other bit of advice would be to figure out what your natural talents are and what your special gifts are, and try and infuse that into your films as well.
Well, would you have some specific advice on how to get your specific skills out? Like, for instance, I've heard that a lot of people, more so in overseas roles, they look for a very specific job, whereas I think in Australian cinema and documentary and whatnot, because it's a small industry, we have a lot more everymen.
Yeah.
So if you find your specific skill, how would you think about tackling projects? How would you sort of give advice to someone like that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it definitely pops up in terms of drama, where the roles are really set and very clearly defined. But if you have got a specific role that you want to pursue, whether it's a focus puller or rigger or something that's very specific, my advice would be to try and seek out a mentor or to volunteer on a big production. And I guess there's lots of production houses around Australia, the Gold Coast, there's one in Melbourne, Sydney, and just try and get on some of those larger productions and get as much experience as you can.
Thank you very much for that, Pip. So now what we're going to do is we're actually just going to go into our review section of the show, which is for the short film called Juli.
Juli, or in English, In July, is a German romantic comedy and road trip movie by German-Turkish director Fatih Akin. This film offers everything a viewer would want from a road movie: an off-the-cuff sense of adventure, winningly scruffy charm, and a whip-smart sense of humour. Akin takes us on a rugged journey from Hamburg to Istanbul in an unexpected geographical adventure through Romania, Bulgaria, the former Yugoslavia, to the Bosporus. Although there are plenty of mishaps throughout, the film is ruled by the happy sense that nothing too terrible can happen. A naive and romantically inexperienced physics teacher, Daniel, buys a ring from a hippie street vendor named Juli, who has secretly loved him for a long time. The ring bears a Mayan sun symbol which, according to Juli, has the power to lead Daniel to the woman of his dreams, who he will recognise by her matching sun symbol. In a cunning plan, Juli invites Daniel to a party that evening, wearing an outfit covered in the same sun symbol. Unfortunately for Juli, she arrives at the party just in time to see Daniel leave with Melek, a young Turkish woman who is wearing the same symbol. The director Arkin, a big lover of symbolism, provides us with thought-provoking metaphoric messages which makes the film even more interesting for an attentive viewer. Even an ordinary popcorn lover will enjoy the picturesque Turkish and German landscapes along with many other natural beauties. Juli is a masterpiece of filmmaking, symbolism and multicultural cinema. If you don't mind subtitles or you speak German, make sure you give it a watch.
We're going to take another ad break now, but stay tuned for more Showreel.
Welcome back to Showreel. It's now time for our short film of the week, and it's called One Standard Drinker. It's a personal journey of self-discovery by writer-director Adam Fowler, as he deals with the consequences of giving up alcohol, and it's produced by local filmmaker Ashley Munro.
You can catch the entire film on YouTube by clicking on the discussion link on our YouTube channel.
Speaking of short films, we'd love to see yours and share your work here at Showreel. If you have something to share with the local filmmakers, submit your film via loveitlocal@31.com.au.
Just about every Aussie loves a good drink. If you're going to have a drink, might as well get pissed. My name is Adam Fowler, and this is how I viewed alcohol ever since I first started drinking as a teenager. I always thought my habits were normal, but in reality, less than 10% of Australians drink as much as I do. Now that I'm 25 and becoming more career focused, I figured it was about time to reevaluate how much I drink. So recently, I decided to take 3 months off from alcohol so I could better understand what it means to be one standard drinker. See, in my social circles, my habits did seem fairly standard, and I never thought I had a drinking problem. But I'd be having somewhere between 12 and 24 standard drinks every time. In my eyes, there wasn't much point in having a drink unless you were going to feel drunk. And feeling drunk meant binge drinking. But over the last 6 months, my attitudes towards my career and my future began to change, and I started to think back to all the low points in my drinking history. I remembered the times when I drunkenly accessed my internet banking and drained my savings account. The times when I woke up with an injury that I didn't remember receiving. Or when I broke or drowned my mobile phone. I started to contemplate maybe taking a bit of time off drinking, and that's when I found out about Hello Sunday Morning.
Hello Sunday Morning is an online movement to help recreate Australia and the rest of the world's drinking culture one Sunday at a time. How it works is people simply sign up and they go for an extended period without drinking. Most people choose the 12-week, but then also provides them a way to share their story.
How do you find the blogging helps with people who do Hello Sunday Morning?
It stops you from thinking, well, maybe I could, just have one drink and no one would really know. Making it very public means that decision's already made. That blogging component gives a greater sense of accountability.
So I signed up and started my 3 months of sobriety. I was excited and enthusiastic, and I anticipated drastic improvements to my health, my finances, and my social capabilities. I started blogging and recording video diaries so that I could share my experiences now that I was living without alcohol. I was definitely feeling better, so I decided to start a health plan which included better food choices and more exercise. And it started paying off.
If we can go straight to the results, there has been a significant improvement in your liver function. As I pointed out to you, you had evidence of some alcohol-related liver dysfunction. And one of the enzymes in the liver, the ALT, was raised to 45, which was just above normal, but now your level is 19, which is right in the mid-range of where it should be. Also, you can see that another enzyme here has come down as well to a very healthy range, which means you no longer have any fatty infiltration of your liver due to the alcohol effect.
I also started thinking about why I drank the way I did, and I realised one thing. You see, most people who drink a lot, they have people or a period in their past which influences the way they drink, and I realised I had a few of them. So high school is where I first started binge drinking, but college is where I perfected it. See, after leaving home to go to university, I lived at an on-campus college, where it was kind of a cross between a boarding school and a frat house. And boy, did those guys know how to drink.
We didn't need reasons. We'd invent them.
Oh, my favourite was probably drink a shot of tequila for every cutaway in Family Guy. Well, we got about 2 minutes into the show.
I remember once we got really wasted for the anniversary of some guy breaking up with his first girlfriend, like 4 years after the fact.
There were dozens of these drinking events every year. And even if there wasn't anything on, it wouldn't matter which day of the week it was, there was always someone to get wasted with. After college, I moved into a share house with my cousin Ryan. This is where I encountered another contributing factor to my drinking habits, my family. And in my family, big parties means lots of drinking.
Yeah, mainly anything really. 21st, 18th, 50th.
Christmas, Easter, first birthdays, baby showers.
Weddings, engagements.
Everything.
And then there's the most recent influence on my drinking habits, my work. See, after dropping out of university, I decided to embrace the cliche and got a job in the one field where I knew I was well educated, bartending. Now you'd think maybe serving drunk people all the time would make you want to drink a little less. But in reality, serving drunk people just makes you want to drink more.
Hospo workers drink so much because they have no other social outlet.
We justify it because no one else sees it.
The only people you get to spend time with are the people you work with.
We get it done between the hours of 2 and 6 o'clock in the morning, and we just turn up for work the next day.
With all these contributing factors in my drinking history, it was no wonder that I drank the way I did. And the longer I went without alcohol, the more clearly I could see it. For instance, I had to find a photo of myself to use in my blog, so I went on Facebook to find one. And I noticed something kind of alarming. It made me realise that most of my social interactions were based around drinking with friends, and that since I'd taken 3 months off from alcohol, my social life had died off significantly. I had tried going out to the pub and to drinking events, but instead of feeling liberated by my abstinence, I found myself on the outside, wishing I could have a drink and join in. As I neared the end of my 3 months, I started to realise that I wasn't going to achieve all my goals I'd set. I hadn't kept my social life intact despite being sober. I hadn't saved all that much money. And while I did lose 5 kilos in the first 5 weeks, my health regime kind of tapered off after that. And to top it all off, for the last 2 weeks, just about all I could think of was having a drink at the end of it. There came a point where I was a little disenchanted by the whole journey, and I was wondering if the whole thing was all that worthwhile. Until I realised that I've been naively expecting sobriety to just fix all my problems. It was only until I was at the end of my 3 months where I realised exactly what Hello Sunday Morning had done for me. You see, for some people who do it, they kind of know where they stand with alcohol. They know how it affects them and what will happen when they give it up. But for me, it wasn't that simple. I think the biggest thing I took away from Hello Sunday Morning was that I was able to sort of view my drinking from a different light and sort of learn a lot about myself. But more importantly, I realised that alcohol itself wasn't the problem. In fact, the more I think about it, the more I realise that I love alcohol. I love how it helps me relax and overcome my awkwardness, whether it's mingling with strangers at a party or if it's having the courage to approach a pretty girl at a bar.
That's a wrap up from us here at Showreel. Thanks again for joining us today, Pip. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show and hear your experience and your diverse range of jobs, and I'll be sure to check out some more of your films later on.
Thanks heaps, guys. It was a pleasure.
No worries. Anyway, be sure to check out our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube pages and the Showreel podcast that's available on iTunes. Thanks again for all those who've decided to fund our Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign. We'll see you all next week.